We are now recording, so I'd like to call the Monday, October 7th regular Langley City Council meeting to order, and of course acknowledge that we're on the unceded and traditional territory of the Kwantlen, Casey, Mathaqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. And I think, we had the Orange Shirt Day and Truth and Reconciliation Day concurrently last week. And, there was a real call to action there by a person from the Indigenous community really saying that it's nice that we say these words about the land, but we should actually take that into action. And, that he challenged ourselves to understand the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I know that that's work we're doing at the city, and of course, we can challenge all those to understand our obligations in reconciliation and restitution. So with that, we have an agenda in front of us. Is there any changes anybody would like to make to the agenda? So I'm not seeing any. And before we get to that, I should acknowledge that there are people in this meeting who are guests. And just a reminder, please keep your cameras and mics off unless instructed to do so. It just helps keep the meeting smooth. So with that, I will move that the October 7th, 2024 regular agenda be adopted as circulated, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? So that's carried unanimously. We're on to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Who would like to move the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Mack, seconded by Councillor James. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. That moves us to our council member report. So we have our next meeting, which will likely be on Zoom on October 21st, and then we'll be back in person in the council chamber on November 4th for sure. Couple of updates now in item 5B for council advisory bodies. I should note that Councillor Albrecht actually received the King Charles III Coronation Medal. So just send a congratulations to him. So that is a medal that's given out to people who have made a major contribution to their BC community or the province as a whole. So in total, 551 of these medals were awarded. On another note, we had Sandra Reams, who's a caretaker of the Michaud House. She has left a gratitude jar at our council chamber, and she is asking that we make our way to, I guess, actually the mayor's office area and put it today. I'm grateful for index card together for said jar. So if you find yourself at the council area, please feel free to do that. And then, of course, there was a fire that occurred in our downtown in the early morning on Saturday. And I know that the whole community, all of council, is very grateful for the diligent efforts of the Langley Fire Service and our friends in the township of Langley, the firefighters there, for coming to that call and working diligently to put out that fire and stopping it from spreading. So, it could have been much worse. And, we really, really do acknowledge a tremendous efforts there. And the Downtown Langley Business Association will also have information on their social media and website for folks that are interested in supporting the community. Of course, the number one thing you can do is continue to shop and eat and enjoy downtown Langley and the Fraser Highway one way. So with that, I will see if there are any other items from council. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you through the mayor. Just a report on one item on the Climate Action Committee for Metro Vancouver in regards to a planned campaign that started in 2020, bylaw 1303. And it's Burn Smart for Healthier Communities. So just actions, resistance need to take place. And so it's just environmental impacts on wood burning, but Metro Vancouver Resistance must register indoor wood burning fireplaces. So there's more information in regards to that on the website.
Thank you very much. And there are still houses in Langley City with wood burning fireplaces, so it's
Yeah,
important that they
check it
that
out.
information.
And I'm sure Mr. Pollock or Mr. Johansson would have more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other updates from members of council? So seeing none, we'll move on to bylaws, item 6B. So this is zoning amendment bylaw 207. So Ms. Kenny, can you advise if we met all the statutory requirements for this?
Yes, Mayor Pahal, all the statutory requirements have been met.
Perfect, thank you. And so with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Johansson, Director of Development Services, for a very brief overview of this.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
All right, so the subject property is zoned service commercial and designated transit-oriented core in the official community plan, or OCP, which allows mixed-use commercial multifamily development up to a maximum height of 15 stories and maximum floor area ratio of 5.5. Now, the site is also located in the city's transit-oriented area that surrounds the under construction SkyTrain station and the bus exchange. And this is required by provincial housing legislation to ensure minimum housing densities are being developed near rapid transit. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the OCP and includes a site plan that sets out the extension of Eastleigh Crescent in phases through the site, and to eventually be extended further westward to parallel Logan Avenue and resolve back to 203 A Street. And as those properties to the west redevelop in the future. And the site plan also shows building footprints and pedestrian open space for each phase. And this site is anticipated to be built out phase by phase over the course of 15 to 20 years. And each phase will require its own development permit, consistent with the OCP and the site plan that's in the proposed zone attached to this proposal. Now, the site plan is based on best practice for transit-oriented development and also provides long-term flexibility in terms of construction type and building heights as the phases progress. And the applicant intends to transition the construction from wood frame to concrete and from low rise to high rise over time. The application has been reviewed by the advisory design panel, and the recommendations have been incorporated or addressed as detailed in the explanatory memo. The recommendations will also be addressed through future DP phases. The first phase has actually been submitted to city staff for processing. So we have the applicant here tonight to present their proposal prior to first and second reading consideration by council. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we get to that, Mr. Johansson, council is considering inclusionary zoning policies. Would that be able to be applied in the future? Say if it was around 3-bedroom units or a percentage of affordable?
Yes, through the mayor, that is something that's allowed through legislation and something that's being contemplated as detailed in the explanatory memo. So that could be done through future inclusionary zoning bylaw, which of course requires its own process, including financial feasibility, consultation, approval by council, and also bedroom requirements can also be incorporated into the zoning bylaw.
Perfect. And that stuff, again, for clarity, we can do in the future. So by any decision council makes today, we're not fettering a future council on those actions. Awesome. Thank you. So with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant for a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Peter Fassbender, and I'm going to be very brief. Really tragic what happened in the downtown core. I was down there, had a look at it, and I know the city is going to rise up and help those folks. The only thing I want to say before I turn it over to Stephen Bartok at Keystone is I really appreciate the effort of the staff in bringing this to you tonight. It has been, a labor of love for the owners, the Arden family and Argus Holdings. But the staff has been great and we've been back and forth. I think what we're doing tonight in rezoning it is giving, first and second reading, that is, I should say, is giving the applicant the confidence to move forward and to look to see this multi-phase site come to fruition and get the first site in the ground. The goal is to get housing built as soon as possible. So I'm not going to talk anymore unless there's some questions later, but I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Bartok from Keystone Architecture to quickly take you through the presentation.
If you're talking there, we cannot hear you.
Maybe while Stephen's trying to figure that out, he might have to log out and log in again if he's got a technical issue. Just a couple of really quick things you talked about, Mayor, in terms of future legislative changes on suite sizes and those kinds of things. The Ardens are very much committed to being open-minded. As you know, and I think Council, we've had this in front of you a few times, they are very open to the future and future development and expansion. Needless to say, I know the city is still hoping that the regulations around the airport may be changed in the future. That's not an easy hill to climb, as you know. But if that does happen, of course, the Ardens and Argus properties are more than willing to look at even higher density on the site, as long as it fits the overall flavor. And again, this development, the vision for it is a community within the community, close to transit, the ability for people to live and work, and also to have homes and green areas. So let's see if Stephen can make it this time. Stephen?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, my panic is over. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with Zoom, so it always changes the microphone whenever you go to different software. So anyways, that crisis averted on my part, so my blood pressure will go down. So just one moment, I'll share my screen. Let me know if everybody can see this.
Absolutely, we can see it.
Okay, so thank you for your time, everybody. We'll just go through this application for the rezoning of the project that has been presented to you just a few minutes ago by Carl and Peter. It's just a brief overview, so if you have any questions, let me know. I won't go into specific details, as Peter has said, for the applications that are going to follow for the different phases, but this will just be high-level overview. So, and I'll have to scroll through this because Zoom won't let me go through page by page. So my apologies for not surprising you per page rather than scrolling. So this is an overview of the project just from a schematic sort of design perspective from the corner of Logan and Glover, just very high level concept design. So I'll scroll down, and I'm not going to necessarily go through all the context. You guys are obviously very familiar with the city of Langley. So if you want to stop and ask questions about it, this just kind of talks about the surrounding context and some of the considerations we had as we developed the project with the client and with planning. And then primarily you can see the shape of the development and bringing Eastleigh through, which was a major driving force, and trying to keep some of those businesses intact as long as possible for the client as we progress for phasing. So this is where Carl had mentioned about the transit-oriented core and the mixed use component. There's the site right here and on the corner of Logan and Glover. And then here's an aerial view. You can see what we're trying to do on the project, which is when we were bringing Eastleigh through, as previously brought to council when we started the project, was trying to keep the storage facilities operational as long as possible. It was very important to the client to keep those businesses and those services for the community as long as we could. So just some more context views. some images, the important corner, its relationship to the casino, the transit that's coming through with some of the apartment buildings that are currently being developed. And here's an overall massing view. This is not what it's going to look like. This is more of the overall massing and size of the building broken down into its components in the bottom left-hand corner. You can see we have parkade, commercial, 2-story expression of sort of townhouses, 6-story buildings, which are the sort of the mid-yellow color. And then we have 8, 10, 12, and 14-story buildings. Those are mostly broken up with the view corridor requirements that we've worked on with planning for the last couple of years of how to kind of fit this density relative to the puzzle of some of the soil conditions we have, as well as the requirements for NAV Canada in terms of our height elements. And these are just overviews of the numbers and just overview of square footages if you have any questions on that. If we scroll down, here is the plan, just an overview of the plan, and you can see that important Eastleigh connector coming through, kind of snaking through the development, splitting into 2 sites with different phases and different sides of buildings and different plaza opportunities, primarily a plaza working with planning coming off Glover and Logan coming into the site. Can everybody see that my cursor by chance?
Yes, we can see your cursor.
Okay, so we can see that coming through from Logan and Glover, cutting on a 45-degree angle into the site, and then providing another interior. So there's sort of 2 plazas that are external, like an extroverted and introverted plaza, as well as these buildings that encompass more private plazas and amenity inside these sort of, I guess, the circular buildings. Here's a very sort of very high program section cut, sort of showing the roads and how these buildings sort of are the program wraps the parkades. We are, with the soil conditions, a little bit out of the ground, but we're trying to alleviate that from a scale perspective for pedestrian interaction by wrapping those parkades with places for people to live, to interact, restaurants, and plazas. Here is some of the street sections we worked on Eastleigh that comes into the site. So I won't go into too much detail. It just shows what is the required 18 meters width that comes into the site and snakes through the site, as well as service right-of-way, setbacks for the buildings, boulevards, and sidewalks. And here is this road section profile for Glover Road. It shows the multi-purpose path, the sidewalk, bike lanes, tree boulevards, that's on the left-hand side there. So if you have any questions, we can come back to that. And as previously noted, these are just some very high-level schematic initial sketches that we had saw last time that we will develop further as we progress into the different DPs that are coming forward as time moves on. Here was some of our landscape group, which is working with us as well out of our office, looking at the patternization of pavers, materials, landscape opportunities to try to create a bit more of a lower level landscape because of just pet issues that we have within the area, right? Trying to keep everything low, everybody can see everything, gives a bit more textural experience. So these are some of the case studies that Landscape was working with. And then these are what we call our design collages. So these aren't really what the buildings will look like, but these are the feels we're trying to get. So this is an image going into Eastleigh, sort of more mature trees to try to give scale to the roadway from the buildings. This is coming in through Eastleigh, looking at the plaza, its interaction at the ground plane with opportunities for pedestrian interaction at the edges. This would be the promenade or the plaza that connects from the Logan Glover corner that goes into the site. And then this would be the Glover Road with the multi-purpose path on the right-hand side there. This was an image we just wanted to show everybody of just sort of the concern for trying to give more landscape area to the overall development. So it just kind of gives what we had before, which isn't a lot. So we've had over 2.5 times more just pure green space than what was previously there, as well as, you know, just approximation of trees, of how many there wasn't any trees, and now we're providing a lot more treescape to the streets and to the people in and out of the development. So this is the last slide, goes back to showing the plaza that we've been working on, this interaction of the street face, as well as what we wanted to indicate here was also the planning of the street lights we've been working on with planning of how we try to really give a lot of sense of security and openness and greenscape, but allow for lighting to actually not have big trees beside some of those lights and create dark spaces within this. I mean, at first it comes across as a very big site with all these buildings. It's going to feel really tight very quickly. So we want to try to make it still feel like it's very open and welcoming. So these are the last two slides I think that we had added in before we had, or since we had last chatted. So with that, I'll stop sharing and give it back to Carl.
Thank you. Did you have anything further, Mr. Johansson?
No, I don't. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So, you know, we will definitely open it up to questions. This is, I think, since I've been on council, the second multi-phase development we've looked at. So it's a little bit different because we're not necessarily looking at form and character, but more massing and location of the different components of the project. And of course, you know, the density. So Mr. Johansson, if I've missed anything, let me know. But again, the kind of the form and character pieces and even the details of the landscaping would come forward with DPs, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And like I said before, the key aspect here with the zone that's being proposed is that it has a site plan with the Eastleigh extension, you know, right away clearly shown, the building footprints, the major open spaces. And then that's what's used as a basis for the development permit applications that come forward. So it really does set a strong tone for the development of the project. But again, it also provides that flexibility in the vertical sense.
Perfect. So with that, I'll see if there's any questions on the presentation from council. So I am seeing one from Councillor Albrecht. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pahal. And it's not so much a question as it is just an acknowledgement as chair of the advisory design panel. I know that we had a pretty robust conversation about the look of the block, the interaction, the public interface, the housing, the layout, the phasing, all these things. And it was a pretty exciting project for us to look at. And we feel it's going to be really transformative and really going a long way to creating like community within our community. I know it does fit with the strategic plan as well as our OCP. It fits with our Innovation Boulevard plans. So everything is falling into place quite nicely. And I just really want to reinforce that this is a legacy project for a long-standing city family, the Arden family, and it's something that each phase will be coming back to council in a more detailed review and opportunity to discuss things, as well as the advisory design panel. So a pretty exciting project. I'm really looking forward to this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albrecht. Is there any further questions or comments for the applicant? So I'm not seeing any. So we do have a recommendation that the bylaw cited as zoning bylaw 1996, number 2100, amendment number 207/2024, number 3287, be read a first and second time. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion? So I just have one further discussion then, and this is for staff. So the advisory design panel did provide some really good feedback on the plazas and public realm. So we don't need to sort of like repeat that at future ADP. Do you envision that the applicant will be given that and council would be seeing how that's implemented moving forward? You know, just so we don't reinvent the wheel 6 times.
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. So it's with the memo here, it's on the record, and it's something we'll be working with the applicant and their architect and landscape architect team. There is a flood construction level that needs to be achieved. So that does lift the site up a little bit, and there might be other conditions that require some elevations. But we're confident that there's a lot of good practice out there and really good skill with the team there to come up with something that's going to work really well.
Perfect. Is there any other questions or comments from council on the zoning bylaw? So I'm not seeing anything from anyone. So seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Is there any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And the applicant, you are free to leave or stick around for the meeting. Choice is up to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So now we're on to item 6B, which is a permissive tax exemption bylaw. I guess I'll check with Mr. Chung. Do we have a presentation for this, or is it just council moving it and asking questions?
To the mayor, I don't believe we have a presentation.
Perfect. So we do have a recommendation that the bylaw cited as the permissive tax exemption bylaw 2024, number 3293 be read a first, second, and third time. Is there a mover? So moved by Councillor James and seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Is there any further discussion on the permissive tax exemption bylaw? So I'm seeing no discussion. Just double checking that it's on Zoom. So there's none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. That brings us to administrative reports. So we do have some recommendations in front of us. I think what I'd like to do is see if there is a mover and seconder for that. And then if we have any questions or whatever we would like to do, we can adjust that at the time. So is there anybody interested in moving the recommendations as they're written? So it's moved by Councillor Albrecht. Is there a seconder on that? Seconded by Councillor James. So I will open it up for discussion at this time. So there's any discussion on the solid waste? Councillor Solium, and if Councillor Mack, do you have a question as well? Okay, thank you. So Councillor Solium, please go ahead.
This is just a question for staff. What would be the consequences of this motion getting voted down?
Through the chair to Councillor Solium. The current contract expires at the end of 2024. This is the last, we're in the last year of a 3 one-year extensions. So there is no obligation to the current service provider to provide services past the end of December of 2024. The city could elect to have them go on a month-by-month basis, but there's no reliability in that, and they could exit from that arrangement at any time because the contract will have fully expired. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up question, or somewhat of a follow-up. The service levels that we're looking at with this new contract, these are comparable to municipalities in the surrounding area?
To the chair, to Councillor Solomon, yes, this is very much becoming the standard of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mack.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. Through the mayor, my comments as a member of council, I think I've made myself clear that I don't feel like we have enough information to support this. If a resident came to me and said, we have these service level increments, what were the cost impacts? What was the difference? Why did you as members of council elect to have these service level increases? I don't feel as a member of council that I can bring up any costs. And I think that in this decision that for me is vital. So I'm not going to be supporting accepting this contract.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? So we'll go to Councillor Wallace and then Councillor Albrecht.
Through the mayor, in response to Councillor Mack's comments, if we don't accept this, where would that leave us? And then to Councillor Solium's comments in regards to looking at other municipalities and comparing, we've already done that. So, I mean, it's looking at where we are going in the future. This contract will go to a date. And in the meantime, if we wanted to do an in-house waste management service, that would be something that we could look at. leading up to the end of if we do go with this contract, it's something that we could work towards in the future. So I don't know who I'm going to direct that to, Mr. Pollock or yourself, Mayor.
I mean, I think that's probably when we talk about the future state, that's a discussion that council can have and provide direction to staff. So I know we have our strategic reviews annually, and I think that would be a perfect sort of discussion for that to talk about what the future would look like with in-house service. If Mr. Pollock has anything further, obviously, please feel free.
Through yourself, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Wallace. I agree. I think over the course, if council were to proceed with this contract, staff will continue to work with our various municipalities across the region to monitor how, you know, where the industry is going, where the regulations are going, and make sure that we bring forward to council for the next contract a level of service that would indicate what the general standard is within the market. But certainly we will continue to monitor those issues as we move forward. Thank you.
And please. Yep.
Just as a follow-up, through the mayor in regards to the Zero Waste Committee, there are so many new innovations in regards to waste management. So when we look to the future, it is going to be different. So yeah, just wanted to make those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Albrecht?
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. Yeah, well, I struggle with this as well. I think it's a service that we should bring in-house, and I'd like to see that as we move in the future, but we need to deal with today and moving forward. We need garbage collection. People are passionate about their garbage renewal. I know that for a fact, and I think we have to remind everybody that I believe this contract is 7 to 8 years old, and the prices 7 or 8 years ago are a lot different than they are today. And there's no way we could have the same garbage collection at the same price moving forward. I think staff have done a good job of doing a comparison of what's going on out in the region. And this is the cost of doing business. We've been getting a pretty good deal the last few years. And I think that while I think there's savings, we're a growing community. We're going to have more condos and townhouses, which reduces the waste collection. As Councillor Wallace said, waste collection and recycling is changing dramatically as we move forward with climate action initiatives. So I would just like to ensure that maybe we have some clauses in the contract where if we want to review the service delivery in a window that's less than the contract, that we could possibly opt out of it as we move forward. So I guess that would be my question for staff: is there a possibility of let's say opting out of the service at some point in the future?
Through the chair to Councillor Albrecht, yes, the contract language will include an opt-out for both the contractor and the city, and those clauses will be included in the contract. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and I appreciate the work staff have done to put this forward. So thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions from council? So I'll provide some of my thoughts if there's no more from council. And, I think what Councillor James said a few meetings back, really does resonate with me. I know she brought up that whenever we do these contract renewals, they're always quite a sticker shock. But I think what provided me a level of assurance is the research that staff did. So our proposed rate is $309 a year. And, I'm not gonna, pretend that we were 150 before and we're going to 309. That is a large increase, and I acknowledge that. And that's nothing I'm going to shy away from. We need to be honest with residents. But then I look at the neighboring municipalities. So Surrey is $337, and the township of Langley is a whopping $372. So, you know, we are well within our neighboring municipalities. And I know we don't have Delta here, but we're even more affordable than White Rock. So I think we've gotten a great value with the negotiation of the contract here, one of the lowest in Metro Vancouver. So that's gives me assurance there. I do think it would be better in-house. I believe it is a core service we deliver, and core services should be delivered in-house. And to not sound like a hypocrite, there's a reason why I am supporting contracting out as it is right now, and that's simply we don't have the facility to be able to house the garbage trucks and the facilities required. Now we have purchased land, and we do have a plan for an operation center. And certainly, as we get closer to that, I'm willing to work with other members of council and staff to ensure that we are having that fulsome discussion to ensure, as far as, you know, me, everything that I can do to make sure we're not precluding us from doing in-house garbage collection in the future. But we simply don't have the space of the facility to do it at this time. But I will, you know, again, at the will of council, work to make sure that we can incorporate that in a new design. And then I'm hopeful that the next time we see this, it's moving towards a system that is in-house with our own employees, where we can control the quality and the great customer experience that people have come to expect from the city of Langley. So I see there's another comment from Councillor Wallace.
Through the mayor, thank you for your comments in regards to the operations center and buying the land and talking about innovation when it comes to waste management, recycling, circular economy, so on and so on. I feel like we're failing in the aspects of what we do for waste management when it comes to community events. Community events are growing. And I just feel like that's, you know, can be all encompassing when we look at this, the in-house service of waste management for households, but just as far as the whole community goes, I feel like that's the piece that we've been missing. So it's a strategic plan that we can work towards. So thank you for mentioning the Operations Center.
Thank you. And I'll just check to see if there's any other questions or comments. So I'm not seeing any. So we do have the 3 recommendations from the report, moved and seconded. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of the 3 recommendations? Opposed? So I believe Councillor Mack is opposed, so that is carried. That brings us to new business, and there's nothing we need to do, but we are releasing a motion from close that the Director of Corporate Services or his or her designate be appointed to bid on behalf of the municipality of Langley City for tax sales. And that might sound interesting to some folks that might be watching this later. So I don't know, Mr. Light, would you be able to provide a little context about this? If I could put you on the spot.
Certainly. So as municipalities have a property tax sale for delinquent taxes that have been in delinquency or arrears for 3 years, this is a mechanism that for the city to collect taxes that are owed to the city. It's under the community charter. All municipalities do the same thing. We do have a situation, or have potentially had situations in the past where we've had properties that have no mortgage company, have no debts owing to them. So typically what happens is if there's a mortgage company, the mortgage company will step in and secure their collateral assets on the mortgage and will pay the taxes so that the tax sale is redeemed and it's avoided. But there are situations where, and particularly, I know the city of Penticton's faced a situation where an individual had some mental health issues and weren't able to understand what the tax sale was about, and the courts actually overruled the tax sale, and that put the city of Penticton in a very difficult situation. So when we find situations in the city of Langley, if we have a tax sale that are in those sort of categories where there's no mortgage company, there's no other interests, and we can't get a hold of the actual property owner, and we do try very hard to get a hold of property owners, knocking on doors and such, the registered mail, trying to find anything we can. And in those situations, then this provides the city the opportunity to become the purchaser of the property so that we have the ability to manage that process a little easier in the future outcomes.
Thank you. And Mr. Light, and that whole change that we just released to public is to make it easier for someone to get their home back.
Correct.
So this is about making it better for the person and making sure we don't create folks that are on the street or avoiding a tragic situation like happened in Penticton. Perfect. So with that, I think we are at the end of the meeting. Ms. Kenny, am I forgetting anything?
No, Mayor Pahal.
Perfect. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Mack, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So we are unanimously adjourned. I hope everybody has a good evening, and I will see you at our next meeting. Bye for now.